This video is for how to make ghee spices for aromatic and nutty flavor. The first 3 slides in this video I will talk about ghee, the rest of the video is for how to make the spices. What is ghee? Ghee is typically prepared by simmering butter, which is churned from cream, traditionally made by churning the topmost layer of curd, which is also called the Bologna method, skimming any impurities from the surface, then pouring and retaining the clear liquid fat while discarding the solid residue that has settled to the bottom. Spices can be added for flavor. The texture, color, and taste of ghee depend on the quality of the butter, the milk source used in the process, and the duration of boiling time. The main flavor components of ghee are carbonyls, free fatty acids, lactones, and alcohols. Along with the flavor of milk fat, the ripening of the butter and temperature at which it is clarified also affect the flavor. For example, ghee produced by the clarification of butter at 100 degrees Celsius or 212 degrees Fahrenheit or less results in a mild flavor, whereas batches produced at 120 degrees Celsius or 248 degrees Fahrenheit produce a strong flavor. Ghee differs slightly in its production from that of clarified butter. The process of creating clarified butter is complete once the water is evaporated and the fat or the clarified butter is separated from the milk solids. However, the production of ghee includes simmering the butter, which makes it nutty tasting and aromatic. A traditional Ayurvedic recipe for ghee is to boil raw milk, let it cool to 43 degrees Celsius or 109 degrees Fahrenheit. After leaving it covered at room temperature for around 12 hours, add a bit of yogurt to it and leave it overnight. This makes more yogurt. This is churned with water, to obtain cultured butter, which is used to simmer into ghee. After you make the ghee, let it cool down, then warm ghee until it is liquefied and transfer to a glass jar with lid. Add ground and powdered herbs to the ghee and stir to incorporate. Place lid on jar and secure, then shake well to further mix ingredients. Let sit for 2 weeks to infuse before using. Ghee blended with dried herbs is quite shelf stable. You can store it in the fridge or keep it on the counter next to where you cook. Tools you need for making the ghee spice: coffee grinder, mixing bowl, fine mesh flour sifter, glass jar. What are ghee spices? It is a group of aromatic herbs and special spices with a fragrant flavor. It gives a delicious flavor and a bright smell that distinguishes municipal ghee from ghee. Mix the following ingredients together and use as you wish. You can use the spice for making ghee or as a spice for food for any recipe. The last 2 ingredients will add more flavor if you are using it for flavoring all food recipes. These are the ingredients: 1 cup of fine grind sweet clover, also called meliot herb or mealy lotus. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. 1 cup of fine grind lemon balm leaves. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. 1 cup of fine grind anise seeds. Do not use the anise star, it is not the same. Must use anise seeds only. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. 1 cup of fine grind fennel seeds. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. 1 cup of fine grind turmeric powder. 1 cup of fine grind oregano and or thyme. You can use half a cup of each. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. 1 cup of fine grind wild chamomile flowers, or wild Greek chamomile dried flowers. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. 1 cup of fine grind herb of grace or common rue. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. 1 cup of fine grind fenugreek. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. 1 cup of fine grind common sage or just sage. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. 1 cup of fine grind meridian fennel or Persian cumin, caraway. Do not use regular cumin because caraway's has licorice and citrus taste are quite distinctive. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. 1 cup of fine grind salvia verbenica, or wild clary or wild sage. This is different than the common sage. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. 1 cup of fine grind chrysanthemums, or mums, or chrysanths flour. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. 1 cup of fine grind dill seeds. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. 1/4 cup of fine grind cardamom. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. 1/4 cup of fine grind clove. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. 1/4 cup of fine grind nutmeg. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. 3 dinner spoons of cinnamon powder. 3 dinner spoons of fine grind Arabic gum powder. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. This ingredient is optional, use it only if you want to use the Ghee spices for flavoring other food recipes. 3 dinner spoons of coriander seeds powder, use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. This ingredient is optional, use it only if you want to use the Ghee spices for flavoring other food recipes. 1 cup of fine pure curry leaves powder. Use coffee grinder to grind it to fine powder. Sift all the ground spices and regrind the large pieces to fine powder. Place all the sifted ground spices in a large bowl or in a food processor and mix well until all blends. Keep the spice mixture in a jar for the time needed. My name is Amer Janineh and thank you for your time.